everybody. Welcome to the Vinyl Attic for another episode of Vinyl Fetish. We are going back to the 100 albums that must be in your record collection if you love vinyl like I do. I think we're at number 23 in this long, slow slog through Randy's favorite records. We got something we actually talked about way in the beginning when we started Vinyl Fetish, when we were spinning records up here in the attic, me and Andy, which is a record that is near and dear to my heart. And one of the reasons I want to talk about this record, there's multiple reasons. One is not everything is streaming. Not everything is available on Apple or Spotify or whatever. There's just like tons of stuff that's just missing. For example, the Buckingham Nicks. When will that record ever be available in any format? And one of the things that's conspicuously absent from streaming our soundtrack compilation albums. I think the assumption is you can get the songs from different places, and if you want to listen to that soundtrack with all the songs from Top Gun, you can assemble it together. But a lot of those songs just are completely missing. We're going to talk about a soundtrack. We're going to talk about a soundtrack that's near and dear to my heart, and it is something that only exists on vinyl. It hasn't been released on CD. It hasn't been released on any streaming platform. It is the 1980 soundtrack album to the movie Times Square. And let me tell you a little bit about the background of this record before I get into why it's so important and should be in your collection. So 77 and 78 is all about Saturday Night Fever, right? Saturday Night Fever comes out. It's huge. It's the biggest soundtrack of all time with the Bee Gees and all the great disco songs on it. RSO, Robert Stigwood Organization. Robert Stigwood, by the way, who had been an assistant to Brian Epstein when he was managing the Beatles, starts this record label RSO and launches tons of music, and the disco thing is huge, right? The disco thing is huge. So they tried to recreate the magic of the Saturday Night Live Fever soundtrack twice in 1980. First was with Urban Cowboy, starring John Travolta. Tried to make country music popular. It was relatively successful. It had this Mickey Gilley hit, Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places. And so there was some great stuff on here, including a really great track that Linda Ronstadt's on, which is the reason I bought it. Then later in the year, RSO thought, well, we did it with disco, we did it with country, let's do it with punk rock. Let's put out a punk movie with a punk soundtrack, and all the kids will be listening to punk rock. All the kids that were listening to disco last year will be listening to punk rock this year. And for those of us that love punk rock, thank God it didn't work. It didn't turn punk rock into a big fad. But the soundtrack was actually more remarkable than the movie itself. The movie is about two runaway girls who end up in Times Square, New York. And Times Square in the late 70s and 1980 was not what Times Square looks like now. Times Square now is like a big shopping mall with Disney stores, and Cozy loves the M&M store in Times Square. I would not take Cozy to Times Square in 1980 because it was just a lot of porn stores and streetwalkers. And if you ever seen Taxi Driver, you know what I'm talking about. One of these days, a real rain will come and wash all the scum off the streets. That was the Times Square that I knew and loved. And it's the sort of south of Times Square that birthed the punk rock movement, the Bowery, CBGBs, Max's Kansas City, and all that stuff that we would read about in the rock magazines like Cream, captured our imagination. That's where the Ramones came from. So this movie comes out about that world, and it stars Tim Curry, who we all loved at the time as Frankenfurter from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So those of us that loved punk rock went to see this movie and loved it. The Ramones are on this, and the soundtrack, though, was a way to get a lot of this music that we could not get our hands on. Again, there's no streaming. There's not even any MTV. There may be somebody you know who has an older brother who has a Clash record, but basically getting your hands on punk rock was really hard to do. So this album in 1980 became a great way to get a lot of this stuff. So listen to this rundown of this double LP. Suzi Quatro, The Pretenders, Roxy Music, Gary Newman, Talking Heads, Joe Jackson, an XTC song that wasn't on any record at the time, which made it very, very valuable. The Ramones, the Ruts, Lou Reed, Walk on the Wild Side, which is so great. Desmond Child, Garland Jeffries, The Cure, David Johansen, and Patti Smith. It was also because it was RSO. Robin Gibb from the Bee Gees was on here, which always pissed me off. But this was a window into this world we imagined, the Walk on the Wild Side world of Soho. Soho also looks completely different now. When you go down, I was just there in February, and if you go down to the Bowery, it ain't what it used to be. So it was a way for a lot of us kids to get into the headspace of this world on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, where CBGB's was. And it was access to this world of punk rock and new wave that a lot of us didn't have. So the soundtrack has been, has become somewhat of a collector's item. A lot of the songs are not available on streaming, so I've tried to recreate it on Spotify, but some of the songs that were recorded for the movie, including the Robin Johnson song, which has the N-word in it, by the way, so trigger warning, aren't available on streaming. It only exists on vinyl, and it so captures the moment where us kids in suburbia were just starting to get our hands on punk rock, and starting to imagine this world in the Lower East Side of Manhattan and the Bowery. You go there now, and there's murals for Joey Ramone and murals for Joe Strummer, and it's become kind of cartoonified. But if you really want a sense of what that Lou Reed world was like, find yourself a copy of Times Square. Really, really great soundtrack, and it just always takes me back. All right, I just wanted to do a quick one, get us back on track for talking about these albums that we're going to be talking about. We've taken a little detour because between this record and the last record that I was talking about, which is the Dire Straits record, we've had a Rolling Stones album and a Beatles single. Now, what year is it? So we took a little detour for Stones versus the Beatles, but we're going to get back to the 200 albums that must be in your collection. Next, speaking of the Beatles, one of the Beatles is currently on tour, and we're going to spotlight one of his great kind of forgotten albums next in our top 200. But I've been dying to talk about this record, and good luck finding it. I mean, you can go on eBay. You might be able to find it on eBay. You might get lucky and find it in a garage sale from an aging punk rocker who bought it in 1980 like I did and got all pissed off because Robin Gibb was on it. It's so, I mean, even just this, I know punk rock was a, aesthetic that they were kind of trying to rip off the Sex Pistols album cover. There's Tim Curry there. And he had a big record that year called I Do the Rock. Myself, Tim Curry, still going strong. So this is just a great record to have in your collection. You will look really cool if you have this, and that's my job, is to tell you what's the coolest thing that you can have. All right, that's it for this. This album matters so much. It plays such an important part in the history of punk rock and kids getting the music that they can't find anywhere else. It matters. This music matters. All of this matters. You matter. So let's talk about it.